Hi everybody, and welcome back to On the Roof. Today we have with us esteemed guitarist, Godfrey Townsend. Hello Godfrey.
How are you, sir?
On the roof.
Onto the roof.
On the roof.
Oh, on the
In
roof.
the studio that's on the roof.
That says roof the on.
Very good. So I see you brought your A game, which is great. It's going to be great.
I think it's upside down.
You're a musician. You're not just a guitarist, but you're primarily a guitarist, right?
Mm-hmm.
How were you introduced to guitar?
Well, my parents were musicians. My father was a singer, opera singer, and my mom was also, she sang, but she also played piano. So it was kind of introduced into my life and my household very early on.
Do you think that musicians are born, or is it something? Is it a
Oh yeah,
craft that you can?
for a fact. Yeah, you can hone a skill. You can learn a technique of something. Anyone can sit in their house and just practice scales over and over again and get fast and fluent and clean and whatever you want to call it at doing stuff. But I think a musical ability, a musical talent that sets you apart from other musicians is something that it has to be in your blood or in your karma or whatever, in somehow or other born into that,
How much has it really meant to you? Like, what has music given you?
I would have to say that through the years, it has helped me get through so many hard times. It has helped me to have an identity.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, you're that guy, you're the guitar player, or whatever. Everyone wants to fit into something, be part of a club or a gang or for a person to be able to play a note on a guitar that makes you feel like, the hairs are standing up on the back of your neck or, it just rips your heart out or whatever. That's an incredible ability, whether or not it's something that person developed or honed or whatever. They just have it in them to be able to do that.
I remember Alexis. That was your first band?
The original idea had started out as a guitar orchestra. I wanted to put together a band of like 1,000 or more, whoever's available, and a half dozen guys, guitar players, and play kind of like rock music, but orchestrated with guitars.
And how old are you when you come up with this idea?
17, 16.
Pretty deep.
Yeah. I mean, Brian May did a pretty good job at doing that with Queen, didn't he? I mean, I love that kind of stuff where he's just building. It sounds like an orchestra or whatever, and it's just all guitars,
Yeah.
So I came up with that first. Let's make a note of that.
2 guitars, a bass, and a drum.
That's it, and that became Alexis, and we started writing material and recording and playing at a place on Queens Boulevard called the Coventry, where bands like Kiss and the New York Dolls and Billy Squires Band Piper, all these bands all kind of got their start there. At one point, Gene Simmons was there, and I'm this wise 17-year-old kid, or whatever, and Gene Simmons is now, I'm Gene Simmons from Kiss, and no makeup or anything, he doesn't walk around with that.
That's good.
And he said, you can have a nice little career in there with your sound to fill some of that void up or whatever, But look at the way you're dressed. He starts criticizing. I'm wearing a black T-shirt, jeans, Levi jeans, and a pair of work shoes. Like you. What do you got on? And
this is going to be a quick interview.
meanwhile, figure he's a big guy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a 17-year-old kid, and I'm kind of like looking up at him, and he's leaning over to talk to me in this club because there's a band playing. And he's leaning over to talk to me, and he has this long, frizzy hair that he had down to here that was like hanging in my face. So as he's talking to me, I'm like blowing his hair out of my face, trying to listen to him or whatever. And he's telling me, if you want to be a star, you got to dress like a star, he's telling me. And I'm like, that's commercial crap. And, so I was, whatever. And then he said, look, get me a demo of your band. We're thinking, okay, yeah, we got to do something about our image or whatever, Yeah. The other guitar player was wearing sanitation workers' pants. They were like green chinos with the orange stripe down the side. He thought that was a cool thing to wear on stage. So we actually came around here. It was right around here. There's a lot of Indian shops, and bought these Indian shirts, that with the long sleeves, almost like Queen wore in the early days, like those kind of things. A lot of kind of fancy.
You set many a trend here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll see some pictures.
Basically,
maybe
you should have been Queen.
Or should have been Queen.
What was the Who one of your earliest influences?
Definitely, right? Yeah.
And that was brought on by the last name.
Well, I remember being on Carnaby Street, 69 maybe, or a little earlier than that, 67, and the Tommy album had just come out.
Right. So
my dad used to like to go browsing in record stores for opera records, rare things and stuff like that. He was a big collector and browser. So most kids' dads took them out playing baseball and fishing, and my dad took me browsing for opera records as a kid.
Right.
That's how I grew up. So we're browsing, and I'm looking, and I see the Tommy album, which is pretty amazing looking album cover when you first see it. It's got that kind of thing, the mirror ball thing with the little faces in there with the hands that are all kind of like, ooh. And, so I pull it out of the thing, and I'm looking on the back, and I'm reading, and I see Pete Townsend. Hey, Dad, look, check it out. This guy's got the same name, and blah, blah, blah. My dad had a music den, even though we lived in a 5-room railroad apartment, right, in Brooklyn. He managed to have the middle room was his den where he listened to opera. And I would just go in there sometimes and just put on the Tommy album. And I would just lay in the dark and listen to Tommy and just go into a dream, just go into a dream and, and then wake up at the end of the second album and get up and turn them over and go back down and just... It's like going on a trip, on a journey, you know what I mean? And
I remember it was later on that you even realized what that story was really all about.
Well, I guess it was almost open to the listener, the interpretation of the listener, what they get out of this or whatever,
Back then too had that double entendre.
See, that's the difference to me in music, is stuff like that was life-changing.
Yeah.
Pink Floyd. Their albums, their lyrics, their lyrical content, not just boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. It's the same old crap over and over again, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just another silly love song, as McCartney says. But, then there were these deep lyrical things, deep messages. The music took you on a journey. The message that was there helped get you through your teen problems or whatever.
In so many ways.
All these guys that are out there, or were out there, were like modern day prophets that were bringing this knowledge to us through, I don't mean to, not that I condone it or anything, but there was mind-expanding drugs going on, and their minds were expanded to a point where they can think outside of the box that we were all in. Funny is that I can remember walking on Myrtle Avenue with my little transistor radio, and listening to like WMCA or WABC, whatever, the good guys, and hearing Sunshine of Your Love for the first time. I remember the first time I heard Purple Haze. Yeah. I thought, what is that, a kazoo? If there's music playing, I'm deciphering it, and I'm pulling it apart and going, oh, the bass is doing this, and there's a keyboard pad in there, and those background vocals are doing that. Just in the background
you are
commercial.
dissecting that. That's just
Yeah,
going
it's just
on
something that goes on all the time, you know?
Your move from the, like, you were like a legend in the neighborhood, like, and seriously.
Big
right?
fish in the little pond.
Well, yes and no. I mean, that's how you look at it. But I remember people like really, you always got respect. Like there's part of again, I'm gonna just take liberties here, but part of being from the neighborhood was you had to hate somebody. Like everybody hates somebody. Nobody hated you. That's like the ultimate compliment.
Really?
That I know.
I've heard different. I've heard a lot different.
It is a consistent neighborhood.
Well, you
No,
know.
but I never heard anybody say a bad word about you. Seriously, I'm not saying that to blow you up or anything. I'm just saying that you were just one of those guys that you play. Everybody liked what you do. You brought a lot of joy to a lot of people. You jammed, and it wasn't just like, oh, he's playing the guitar. This is fun. You kicked it, man. I mean, Forest Park. I remember seeing you play.
You know, we put it. We put everything into it.
Yeah.
You know, 150%.
Yeah.
It's just
And when
some
you're
people.
in the neighborhood, that's a local scene, but it was as good as it got in that local scene. But for you, that's not enough, right? So then, is that when you came into the city? You got was it
Yeah.
a club thing? With the
Well, we
big-
figured we have to somehow or other go across the pond if we're ever going to get anywhere, right?
You mean the East River?
We have to go across the pond to get into the city, and we started playing Great Gildersleeves on the Bowery.
Sure. Yeah.
I remember going into CBGB's once, and Hilly was there. He's the owner. The owner?
Yeah.
He was there in the afternoon, and
That was such a diving, disgusting place, but it was.
it smelled like a urinal. That was the first thing I remember.
Fondness, but it was.
It's like, this is like a subway bathroom.
And you had to take the L train to get there, so everything about getting there was as disgusting as actually getting there.
It's completely. And so he says, yeah, we got auditions on a Monday night. Monday night is audition night. So I'm thinking I'm getting myself a gig. So I'm asking him, you know, okay, so how much does it pay? Oh, no, don't pay. CBGB's doesn't pay anything. You come in and you audition. And if we like you or whatever, then we let you get a Monday night, you get a different night or whatever. So immediately I was like, what? I understand that as a young person, you know. I went, okay, I have to think about this now. And so as I was leaving, he's going, so? And I went, yeah, maybe we'll pop down. And he was like, oh, no, you don't pop down. I got to write you in the book, and you have to have like on a schedule that you're going to be. And I just went. I was totally like appalled by the whole situation.
Clothes for roaches on the way out.
And I just went, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, you shan't be seeing us, sir. Yes. And I never went back there.
And what comes after that?
Pretty much just go get a job.
Okay.
Go get a job. So get married, get a job.
Just throw that in there.
Have some kids.
That's it?
Now it's just like you gotta go to work.
Life's really happening now.
Then got a call from a friend to do a tour as a sound man. And I went over to Europe for 3 months and worked as just front of house sound. What did I know about that? Oh, the vocal not loud enough. There you go. That's better. You know, that's pretty much what I did for 3 months.
And does that pay? Something like that pay?
Well, it paid me something. You know what I mean? It was a way to get out of where I was. I was probably doing really bad and drugs and stuff like that, and needed, you know, a hiatus, a sabbatical.
No, yeah.
And somehow or other, and I'm going to bring up the big G man here, somehow or other, God always knew, get the hook, when to get the hook.
Yeah.
And just remove me from where I was and put me somewhere else.
Yeah, Godfrey, I've done the same thing many times, different, not musically, but yeah, you have to get away, man. You just have to.
So yeah.
That's why we're here talking.
Exactly.
Right?
A lot of people weren't as fortunate.
Graced or,
right?
Or fortunate.
So yeah. So that's right off the bat to start off with how appreciative of just being alive. As Mark Farner says, any day above ground is a good one. Any day sucking air, he says. Any day sucking air. Any day sucking air is a good one. So I just come back from this tour.
Do you have to feel ready to come back at that point? Do you feel, or is that just?
Well, it's just, you know, a good 3 months will take care of you, I think. You know what I mean? Away from everything.
Well, you know what you're coming back into, Or you're just trying to just live your life?
Tour was over, time to
Yeah.
come home.
Okay.
So one of the first gigs we did when we were ready to play out was the China Club. They knew everybody. It was Billy Squire was involved and all that stuff. So we had some clout there. And I wound up running the Pro Jam. John Entwistle's in town to play Carnegie Hall with Roger Daltrey. We had made arrangements to have him picked up in a limo and brought up to the China Club.
Right.
And he comes up with Eddie Vedder and Linda Perry from Four Non Blondes and Rabbit, keyboard player that played with The Who, and Simon Townsend, and just a bunch of names. Phil Palmer, who played with Clapton. And
Patty, man, she's really wild, huh?
so, yeah, I mean, she sang,
So talented.
we did a Zeppelin medley with her, and she just killed it, really.
She is
And so here it is, the first time I'm meeting John Entwistle or whatever, you know, and just he's coming up on stage, I'm shaking hands with him, and he's grabbing Mark Clark's bass, and he starts,
Thunderfinger.
let's go. And I knew all that stuff, and I sang it all. And once we started rolling, I mean, my generation, Baba O'Reilly, you know.
This is the first time you've ever played with John Entwistle, right? You're such a big Who fan. You know the music inside out. What's going through your head when you're up there playing? I mean, it's great to have known to know the music that way, but how much he was a fan of it, a musician, or like what's going on with you?
Fortunately for me, it was just like it wasn't happening. You know what I mean? Like it was too good to be true, kind of thing, or whatever. I don't know, because I wasn't like nervous. I was in my element, you know. I'm used to playing on that stage and running things on that stage, and in that mode, musical director kind of running the Pro Jam guy mode. And here comes John Entwistle. Let's go. I mean, there was even a point where I was calling the tunes, and he'd go, I don't know that one. I don't know that one. And I go, come on. I was like, get out of here. No, really. What's the middle bit? And I would tell him the chords to the middle section of a certain song, and then we did it. And then he would play it flawlessly, and then go, oh, that worked out well, you know, whatever, you know. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, just 2 hours nonstop of just jamming with Entwistle.
And that leads into a relationship that took you...
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, the plot thickens. I get a call from Mitch Weissman, the Paul McCartney guy, who I met through the whole China Club scene, saying to me, hey, we're doing this show at the Flamingo Hilton Casino in Laughlin.
Right.
Not in Vegas, in Laughlin. Yep. Laughlin's a mini Vegas that's 90 miles south of Vegas, right on the Colorado River.
Where you can lose just as much money as you can lose in Vegas with a lot less glamour.
And then we're going to back up Joey Mullins from Badfinger, Spencer Davis, Mitch Ryder, Tiny Tim, Merrily Rush, who sang Angel of the Morning. Right. People like that, you know, Sal Valentino from Beau Brummels, like, you know, a couple of acts that were stayed on the whole time, and then a few acts would change up and come in and out every couple of weeks or whatever. And he goes, can you do it? And meanwhile, I'm just a babbling fool at this point, right? And I just go, yeah. Yeah. Yes, I can. And the hook comes down and takes me over to Laughlin for 3 months. I get a call while I'm out there. Hey, guess who's wants to put a band together and tour and wants you as his guitar player? John Entwistle.
Nice. He was, as a musician, so revered, but he was so stoic. I mean,
he was the one that held it together, wasn't he?
Well, you tell me.
Well, look at the,
Yeah,
you know,
that's what I saw,
just
but-
picture the Who in the middle of one of their performances at the peak, in a frenzy of one of their tunes, and you got Keith Moon just flying all over the drums, Townsend doing windmills and jumping up in the air, and Daltrey swinging the mic all over, and just Entwistle just standing there playing the bass
But
with
he
a
was
toe
doing so much
tapping.
more than paying them.
Yeah, exactly.
So you tell me.
He also played all the brass on all the Who stuff.
Yeah, right.
On Tommy, on Quadrophenia. He played all the brass. He had a brass room in his house that was everything from tubas to French horns to trombones and everything else, and trumpets. All that is him.
Yeah.
All that is him, you know?
Would you call that genius?
Yeah, I mean, look at the
Or is
things
that
he
an
came
overuse
up
word?
with.
Is that
Yeah, I don't like to use it a lot because everything nowadays, oh, guy's a genius,
have
you know.
worked with anybody that you would say is a genius? Were you just in awe?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, someone like Alan Parsons,
Yeah.
who audio engineer. When it comes to audio engineering, brought up, you know, grew up as a tape op guy or whatever, and working in EMI Abbey Road Studios, running copies of cassettes. That's how we started out.
Right.
You know, as far back as Sgt. Pepper. You know, and said to me, you know what it was like to be a teenager working at Abbey Road Studios and running copies of Sgt. Pepper before it was released. You know how bad you wanted to go play that for your friends, you know? And he goes, it would have been a sure way of getting sacked, you know, being caught, you know, doing that. So you were on your honor to just not do that, you know?
How many guys do we know that would have not been able to not do that?
Gone. They would have been gone.
They
They would have been selling them, mass producing and selling them with their own covers. Like he did Dark Side of the Moon, as you mentioned before. He was the engineer on Dark Side of the Moon. He came up with ideas like the alarm clocks at the beginning of time, or the
And they
steps.
But that was the first, like, that wasn't some, back then, they actually used an alarm clock, and they actually used,
Yeah,
I mean, they had to
they were all what they call tape,
cash register and stuff like that.
you know, pieces of recording tape that were all spliced together
Yes.
to make that happen. We worked on the road for 8 years together, right? Toured around the world a half dozen times and whatever. And he would make little suggestions to me during a sound check or something. Why don't you do this with your sound? How about do this? And just little tiny things that you just go, God, what difference could that possibly make? It's such a subtle, and then you do it and it's like, wow, you know.
And does he have the reverence with you where you would say, if he just suggests such a thing, well, I'm going to go do it. I mean, there's no way you don't do it, right?
This is the guy who engineered Dark Side of the Moon. He's telling you to do a little something with your amp. You're not going to do it? You know,
Of course.
yeah, you know, so just a simple thing like, why do you have reverb on your amp? Well, just to give it a little bit of a sound like you're playing in a place. But aren't you playing in a place? You're already playing. You've already got the natural reverb of the room. Why would you need to add it on?
So what is that then? Is he just more tuned in? Is he, you know?
Sonically,
Yeah.
sonically, he's hearing stuff.
Okay, so what is it about Jack Bruce? Now you're playing.
Okay,
Now,
Jack Bruce was quite a musician's musician. And what was interesting was that I had bought a book. It was a big, thick book about this big called The Beatles Complete. And it was all the Beatles songs in tablature form, which is written out, the notes are written out, and then they're in a framework where you can see what finger, what fret,
oh, wow.
all the different parts. Oh, it's that, there, this, and that. All the vocals written out. Everything's there. And so, first day of rehearsal, we're doing a song, and Jack's playing the wrong part. He's playing the wrong thing. And now I have to go up to Jack Bruce and tell him,
We've got a situation.
that's not the right note. You're playing the wrong bass note on there, Jack Bruce, who plays bass for Cream. And he was very cordial. He was very cordial, and as a joke, he turned it into a lighthearted thing, and we started referring to the Beatle Complete book as the Bible.
Which you have memorized.
He goes, let's go check the Bible. Yes. We go over to page number 764. There it is. That's that little passage there. Look what it says the bass plays right there. Ah, yes, you were right. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm right. Yes, and that was it. And so he was open to stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas John Entwistle, the year before, showed up for the tour not knowing any of the material.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the last minute said, I know I want to hold your hands. And we went, okay, it wasn't going to be in the show, but now it's in the show. At least we know one song, and let's go forward from there. He had a chart. He had a book of all the chords and stuff written out, cheat sheets that I helped him put together in the hotel rooms. Like, you know, and he kept that book for the whole tour in front of him, you know, playing all this stuff and cursing about stuff. Cursing about parts like, well, if I would have known that they wanted me to play Paul McCartney's bass parts, I wouldn't have taken the tour.
Yeah, many great players, but they happen to be great players that had great songs. And
Yeah,
great,
anyone,
to play with.
you know, anyone who respects where it all started has to respect that.
Of course, yeah.
That nobody else was doing this before us.
Plus, there's that magic. There's a certain magic about the right guys being together and being able.
There's an energy, there's a chemistry
Yes.
with these bands. I mean, they all were known for like beating the crap out of each other and doing crazy things. But once they got on stage, that energy
Yeah.
translated out.
That's a good point because I saw you play a couple of weeks ago, right, with Bobby Whitlock, and that was a great show. But as it started out, it was either it might have been the very first song. What you guys open with?
Any day, yeah, any day.
And you start jamming. He's got his thing going with Coco, and you come in there, and there's that right away. And I just seen him look at her and you, and he's like, "We got this. Yeah, this
Well,
is great."
see, I obviously know the record.
Yeah.
I've been listening to it since the 70s and learning a lot of it and playing it with my own band. So I know those parts that are on the record. I was like set up in the corner with my own band when we
did you
opened.
meet him?
I
By the
did.
way,
I
that
never
afternoon?
met him. And yeah, that afternoon we met. Yeah.
Just as a fan going to see this, I love this. I'm thinking, I hope this is not going to be like Steve and Edie. You know, one of these, you know? And it was so not that. They're so good. She is great.
Yeah.
I mean, the two of them. And they're
Or John and Yoko.
I didn't want to go that low. Oh my God. No.
You know, I hadn't heard much of them before. You know, and I just thought, oh, I hope it's not going to be, you know, whatever. And it was amazing. Coco was unbelievable. She was just, her voice was like blowing up the PA system. It was so powerful and so emotional. And she's jamming on the sax, she's jamming on the guitar, and they've got such a great, tight chemistry going.
That's really, really comes
Yeah,
out. And,
yeah.
And grand, yeah, they're really good. But you were part of that. It wasn't, you saw theirs?
Yeah, well, that's
You
the
saw
thing.
great guys.
That's why they kind of wanted me. It's like they were like here and there, and then they wanted me like right stuck in there,
Right.
like part of the family.
But taking that out of the context, let's take that out, right? Just as a musician, when you get I mean, you could play, and then you get that really special, those special moments when the groove is just on fire. What does that feel like?
Well, obviously there are so many different aspects that make for inspiration. Different things that can make for
When you're in that
inspiration.
moment, whatever the aspects are, they get you in that moment, and there you are. I mean, how is that the coolest thing? What is it? I mean, what is that?
I don't know. They used to say that when you're playing music passionately or whatever, that the feeling is equivalent to having sex and getting high at the same time.
See, that's a very good description. I think, you know, yeah.
If you can imagine it. So I mean, and you know, these are two, you know, whatever. I don't know about as far as the getting high thing, but the feeling, the euphoria of being high.
Okay, so again, I'm trying to get something specific. Is that as high as you can get? Or if that was as high as you could get, let's just say hypothetically, that's as high as you can get. That feeling you got when you're jamming, and the jam is what it is. It's beautiful. It's special. If that's as high as you can get, is that enough?
Well, it all depends. Not enough, because I aspire for even higher than that.
In that moment, you're different, man. You're a hostile witness, man. You really are.
Yeah, am I?
I mean, I should have went to the I can't handle you, man. I get nowhere.
What I'm saying is that there's a
Jack
higher,
Bruce. I mentioned Jack Bruce.
there's a higher pleasure. There's a higher pleasure. So if you're asking me if that's, does it get any better than that? Materially, the material pleasure.
Again, no. Now you're twisting my question. I'm saying if that's as high as you can get, that moment, that's a special that the purity of that moment, if that's as high as you'll ever get, is that enough? Like you'll never get above that level again. Is that satisfying enough?
It's hard to say. Because, you know, if something isn't not completely satisfying, if it's not completely satisfying, you want to do it again.
I'm not saying you can't get back to that moment again.
It's hard to get back to that moment. It's not something you can chase. You chase after the high, don't you? I mean, I've been into Eastern philosophy since I'm 17 years old, and now here I am getting to go to India.
So what gravitated you towards that spirituality, like that Eastern?
Two things were in high school. A couple of friends of ours who went to the High School of Art and Design here in Manhattan. You know, they used to go outside for a lunch break or whatever and smoke cigarettes and whatever else. And the Hare Krishna devotees would come around and kind of preach to them or whatever, you know, try to recruit, you know. And a couple of our friends got involved and moved into the temple and shaved their heads and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, but now also the Beatles are introducing it.
That was the other part. So that was the first thing that got us, oh wow, our friends,
Now
let's go see them.
You've heard the Hare Krishna term.
So we've heard that, right. And I actually even knew it when I used to go travel with my parents to England. In London, you know, they were in London in 1969. And they did an album with George, you know, on Apple Records. They released the Hare Krishna mantra, was an Apple record single in 1969.
Yeah, you're into this now. I mean, like you're into the Beatles now, so you know everything.
Right.
Going on.
So we're knowing all this. So that helped to, you know, George Harrison came out with, well, of course, even earlier on, 1970, he came out with the All Things Must Pass album, which had My Sweet Lord, which had the Hare Krishna mantra in the lyrics, and all the songs were kind of spiritual, you know, about, you know, finding God or whatever, or the art of dying, Hear Me Lord, all these songs that, you know.
Bobby Whitlock played on that too. Right?
Yes, he did. Yeah. So that, and then the Living in the Material World album, the Dark Horse album, all these albums were all references to Krishna and Krishna consciousness philosophy.
At this time you're saying, well, it seems this guy's cool. It's, you know, it's not
nothing better than having someone like George Harrison as a spokesman for your your thing, you know.
As a neighborhood guy, right? Aren't you loaded with skepticism at this point, or are you just so frustrated that the shit that you've been taught is just not measuring up?
A lot of people are. That's what I find. You know what I mean? That a lot of people have been burnt, disappointed, betrayed, and all kinds of stuff from religions and spiritual leaders and whatever.
But there's something inside you that says keep looking, right?
That there's something to it. There's something more to this than what we're all just doing here. You know, I can't help but think that it goes on, and there's no end to existence in one form or another. I can't imagine ever not having existed or not going to exist.
Okay.
You know,
is the process to just be the best human being you can be, with a quest for knowing as much as you can know?
I guess that would be a start, wouldn't it?
So I made it.
Because
you're just not that good.
Who's qualified to say that you are the best human being? Who's qualified to say
everything's brought to one guy? Like
you know all there is to know? You know, people say, "Well, I just think you should just be a good person."
Well,
that's what life is about. Yeah, but who says what's good?
Right.
We have to know what good is first. So it's all just very, philosophy is different than religion. Religion is more ritualistic stuff that you just don't, it doesn't make much sense to you. You don't know why you're doing it. You're just supposed to do it.
You're told to do
I remember my dad always going, well, you're not supposed to know. You're just supposed to do it.
Yeah, right.
But Dad, what about...
Yeah, but that's going to make you question everything.
What about this, Dad? Well, that's a mystery. We're not supposed to know that. Okay, what's my motivation then? You know what I mean? Right? So philosophy is more of a lifestyle. You incorporate it into your lifestyle and you live it. You live it. So you're living proof of and if by living that lifestyle you get off drugs, you don't do anything bad to people, you're a happy person, you're an inspiring person, you send out positive vibes to people, there's the proof of that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Charlie Manson had his idea of what he thought was good as well, right? So we can't just say, well, you just got to be a good person. Yeah.
Try harder next time, Charlie.
We went on Jim Brewer's show one day. Jim Brewer had a radio show at Sirius XM.
Okay.
And we went up there as the Alan Parsons Project to do a radio interview thing in the studio. So he has a guy that's like one of his interns that works with him on the show. And his nickname is Shaka, and he's their deep guy. So we start goofing around about stuff, talking about things, and so then he goes, hey, I got an idea. Let's go around the room, and let's hear from everybody what their thoughts are about, religion, life, afterlife, existence. What's the meaning of life? Let's hear it from everybody, a little bit from everybody. And strangely enough, Alan, who I had thought was this mystical guy, you think Alan Parsons, Tales of Mystery and Imagination, and all these albums, Edgar Allan Poe, and all this deep stuff, all these deep lyrics, and all these deep, musical things, and you think he's probably a very deep, mystical guy, and he was just like, oh, I don't think anything happens. I think you go to sleep and that's it. And that was it. And he went around the room and everybody gave their little bit of, whatever, and then came to me and I started going off on my thing.
Right.
And Jim goes, wow. He goes, wow, Alan, you got a deep guy. Your deep guy is way deeper than our deep guy. So it was pretty funny, yeah.
What do you got going on now? Like, what's upcoming in your...
Immediately upcoming is I'm doing a thing with Ginger Baker's son, Kofi Baker, who I've worked with before in another band called Sons of Cream. And so now we're doing a thing called Kofi Baker's Cream Experience. And it's going to be myself and Greg Smith on bass, power trio. Greg Smith has played, he was out on tour with me this whole past summer on the Happy Together tour. And he's played with Alice Cooper, Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. He's Ted Nugent's bass player currently. He's been with him for many years. And we're going to go out and do a couple of gigs, and I'm going to try to incorporate that into, I'm upgrading my Clapton tribute show into more of a stage thing with a light show, some screens behind us with footage and of stuff and interviews from people. It's going to be narrated with a script by a guy named Mark Roberti, who has done over a dozen Clapton biographies and stuff like that. He's real excited. English guy who he wants to narrate it and write the script with me. So that's going to happen. A guy who I worked with who has been doing the Laser Floyd Spectacular show for many years. He's going to be involved in all the... No, this is something else that went around, and it was the music of Pink Floyd to a laser light show and some screens with all kinds of cool footage and graphics and stuff like that. And we did a show playing the music live. We learned all the Dark Side of the Moon and some of the Wall and all these others. And we did it in Texas at the Paramount Theater in Texas, San Antonio. So he's going to be in charge of all the visuals and everything. And it's something that I think is good timing to put out there. Clapton turned 70. He's retiring. There's going to be a void there for his music and live performances. And we're going to try to take it out to performing arts centers and small theaters and stuff like that,
Any dates lined up yet?
Nothing for that yet.
Right.
We're still... The Kofi thing, we've got a couple of dates that are going to be
area?
announced soon. One on Long Island in Belmore at KJ Farrell's.
Okay. Oh, great.
We're doing one up in Shirley, Massachusetts at a
That'll
place
be
called the
before
Bull
end of the
Run.
year?
Yeah, the end of October.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Yeah.
right around the corner.
And there's a place in Bordentown, New Jersey called a Record Collector. They're like a used records and all kinds of stuff, hard to find stuff. Well, it's kind of an intimate setting, you know, like a storyteller's kind of unplugged thing or whatever. And we're going to do a show there. We're just kind of work out the kinks and stuff. So doing a couple of small shows to
great.
get it going and get the idea happening. Yeah, he's his father's son.
Yeah.
He's actually, in my opinion, several times the drummer.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's not a slouch. He is, whoa, like Simon Phillips level of drumming.
Wow.
Yeah, so, yeah, yeah,
Quite complimentary from the king. Yeah.
yeah.
All right, Godfrey, this has been great. I mean, we got to do this again, too. This is really good.
How about tonight?
All right, let's do this. You know, let's start this again. Let's do this. All right, take two.
Let's just grab some Chipotle. The line's got to have died down by now.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, for sure. But listen, I want to thank you very much.
Yeah,
This is a
yeah,
real
it's
treat.
my pleasure.
Absolutely. You're the man.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm going to just play some original stuff.